And he talks about Michael Eisner and how he would use silent leadership and questioning to lead the remarkable transformation for the Disney Corporation. And I think Disney we think of now as just this mammoth media powerhouse, but there was a time 20 or so years ago in which Disney was just an old, aged, not very fresh corporation that just had an aging library of movies from the 50s and 60s, and not the absolute media powerhouse that it is today. But the man that was responsible for that transformation was Michael Eisner, and he used a tremendous amount of silent leadership to not only turn around the corporation, but also to to foster new ideas and to lead in a silent way by using questioning. So Michael Eisner and his team had formed a design team to figure out whether or not either one of these two attractions could actually be turned into a theme park that made any sort of money. So the design teams did all their research, and they did, for months and months, and then made a large presentation to Eisner. And what Eisner did is he just sort of listened carefully, and then he asked each one of the team members question after question. And after he did it, it was kind of clear to everyone in the group that Eisner really didn't have any preconceived notion of what the park should look like, but he put himself more in the shoes of his potential customers. So, what would they get for their money? How much they would spend in the park? Would they have lunch in the park? Would they make a return visit? All just sort of typical questions that he wanted to find out to determine whether or not people would actually go to either one of these things. Is this going to be a money-making venture for Disney? So anyway, Eisner grilled the team until eventually they sort of decided that they really weren't as far along in their thinking as they had assumed, because he started to poke holes in a lot of their preconceived notions of what either one of these two attractions could really do for the Disney Corporation. So anyway, the team went back to the drawing board, and but they had a slightly tighter deadline that he put them on to make sure that they would figure out whether or not they were going to exercise these options that they had on both of these properties. So a month or so later, they came back, and they had really done everything that was humanly possible, and they returned back in front of Eisner. And so as he queried them, a consensus sort of gradually grew and built among the team members that they really didn't think that any of their ideas could float. And they eventually decided not to move forward with the lease options on either one of these properties. And I think they still sit in Los Angeles to this day. And one of the people in the group actually said, basically, because of Eisner's questioning and his long pauses and his long silences, is that I think we finally got the answer to our basic question, that there's no way in hell anybody can make a silk purse out of this sow's ear. So, as I said, Disney passed on the option. So let's really look at why this is an example of silent leadership. Because during the entire process, Eisner never issued a command. He never barked out an order. He never raised his voice. He never badgered or threatened or even punished anyone. He didn't invent the strategy. He didn't really contribute any usable ideas. All he did is use silence and questions in order to get his team to come to a conclusion so that it would be the best decision possible. And in this particular case, it was to pass on the option. But it could be said that Eisner, because of his questioning and because of his silence, he led that effort and led it brilliantly, because he created the conditions under which his team could do its best work effectively. And instead of investing millions of dollars and finding out later on that it was a money-losing venture, they ended up passing on the offer because of his silent leadership. So this brings up a good point, is that you as a sales leader, you don't need to know all the answers, but you really do need to know a lot of the right questions, if not all of the right questions. And when you ask those questions, stay silent so that you can let your salespeople give you the ideas and the fuel that's necessary to create solutions, create more opportunities for enhanced sales, so that together the two of you can then lead your company and increase your revenues using these ideas that are fueled from these feedback sessions. So just like Michael Eisner did in determining whether the Spruce Goose and the Queen Mary could potentially be entertainment ventures for Disney, you can do the same thing with your sales team by using the 5 tips that we talk about in this week's show. And just to review, number 1 is, first off, convey your concern. When you're upset, try silence instead. And a deliberate pause often makes others understand that you're annoyed, but you're not coming out and saying that you've lost your cool or that you are angry. It's a very, very powerful way to convey your concern. Number 2 is it builds trust. So if you're always looking for chances to interrupt and talk over people, keeping quiet is a very attentive and respectful way to draw out what others are really thinking. And number 3, demonstrate your curiosity. And you'll find that silence is an indicator of a well thought out response as opposed to just shooting from the hip. If you typically shoot from the hip and blurt out your answers for whatever questions or whatever issues it is, you may not get as much feedback from your audience. So demonstrate your curiosity, and then that will actually help your people come to their own conclusions as you guide them along the process. Number 4 is act as a sounding board. And if someone shares a tough decision he's facing, by not saying anything, you can give someone the kind of empathy that they're looking for. And you can relieve yourself of having to come up with the answers on your own. And number 5, and lastly, is elicit input. And when you ask questions, gird yourself for the discomfort if you don't know what the direct response is. Some people need a few seconds to think about it before they speak. So eventually people will start talking, and that gets us to a much more open discussion. So elicit input from your salespeople as well. And use these 5 techniques in order to become a silent leader. Now, for hundreds of other sales management techniques and strategies, such as this one, you can find them in the Sales Management Mastery Academy, along with tons of done-for-you resources to help your sales managers achieve sales management success. So to claim your free sales manager training inside the Sales Management Mastery Academy, including our most popular training of all time, How to Motivate Your Sales Team to Peak Performance, visit salestraininggift.com. That's it for this episode of Sales Management Mastery. Until next time, wishing you ultimate sales management success.
You've been listening to the sales management, motivational, and leadership training expert, Ralph Burns. Ralph invites you to discover the sales manager training secrets that will unleash a flood of new sales from your sales team. Visit salestraininggift.com and you'll get instant access to your choice of life-changing sales manager training techniques, only taught in the internationally acclaimed Sales Management Mastery Academy online community. Go now to salestraininggift.com. Sales Management Mastery.